what I want to do is I want to continue to keep the focus, that we're using meditation, and we're using meditation not just for stress reduction, right, and to calm the mind. We're using meditation to reduce the static, to bring all the noise level down in the mind. And by doing that, it becomes a lot easier to see what you otherwise would not be able to see, because thoughts are always happening, right? Thoughts are always happening. We're thinking beings, we're doing beings and thinking beings. We're not being beings, right? Most of us don't know how to be. We only know how to think, okay? So when that starts to calm down, it becomes easier to recognize that there is an awareness that is what you're experiencing now. Because when you're not thinking what is happening, there's an awareness here. This is a discovery in the sense that if you recognize this awareness here is an answer to all your problems. It's an answer to all your suffering. Why? Because it's not just an awareness here, it's you. This is the real you. This is the authentic self. This is your true nature. This is the reality of what you are. And let me tell you about yourself, right? And you won't recognize what I'm describing right now, because most people are not experiencing who they are. They're experiencing what they think. That's their whole life, is what they think and what they feel and what's going on, the circumstances, right? Yeah. So the reality of who you and I are is that who you are is happy, always at peace, always satisfied, okay? Never disturbed, never affected by the circumstances that are occurring in life. Well, happy, peaceful, satisfied, not affected by the circumstances, clear, seeing things clearly so your actions are effective. Well, if you listen to that description, who wouldn't want to be that? Who wouldn't want to be that, right? Even though you are lost in the idea that you think you're a personality, even as a personality, you're trying to be those things, aren't you? Yeah, as a personality, everybody's involved in self-improvement, right? And in what way are you trying to improve yourself, right? You're trying to be more relaxed, less stressed out. You're trying to have more fun, right? Be happier. Feel more peaceful, not be so anxious all the time, not be affected by these mental states like depression and anxiety, sleeplessness, right? Stupidity, yeah, you see, stupidity is one of the ways that the personality finds itself operating in the world. So what am I saying by saying what I'm saying? I'm saying that I'm sharing with you that there is a you that you may not know about, or there is a you that even if you know about this you, it's something that you're trying to become as a personality. You're trying to become a better personality. Well, there's a problem with that, and anybody who's been involved in self-improvement knows what the problem is. First of all, self-improvement is very limited, okay? And all you have to do is look around and see what the truth is. People who attempt to get in shape at the gym, people who attempt to diet, people who attempt to make major changes in their life of any kind, find that their ability to do that is rather limited, okay? So that's because the personality is so unstable, right? What do I mean by that? Well, the personality who most people think they are, which is a personality, which is a conditioned, learned reality. You learned your name, you learned you were this body, right? You learn who you are as a personality, and you're living your life as that personality. You're being that personality, right? Well, through these teachings and practices, what we come to see is that's actually a misunderstanding. That's a mistake. It's a wrong take, right? Because the personality is something that we learn that's like putting a mask on. The persona, the word persona means mask, right? Or even a lot of times the personality is called the self-image, right? Self-image. Well, if it's an image, it's not actually the real thing. It's an image. A mask is not actually the real thing. It's a mask. It's a persona, right? So we learn to put this mask on very early on, before we're old enough to have any other alternatives or question it or anything. You put the mask on, right? And now you're the personality. And you're in the world of personalities, and all personalities are unstable. What do I mean by that? They're changing all the time. Your personality is changing all the time. Every day when you wake up, you're a different personality, right? That's one of the things that's difficult about living life as a personality, is that you're trying to be stable. You're trying to maintain consistent in life by doing things that will make a difference, but you find yourself unable to do that because the personality is in a constant state of flux, a constant state of change. Your thinking is changing all the time, your emotions are changing all the time, your behavior is changing all the time, your circumstances are changing all the time. So this is crazy making, right? That's why people are stressed out. That's why people act crazy and behave crazy, and that's why what we have right now is a mental health crisis. We have a mental health crisis. I'm glad to see it, by the way. I'm glad to see it, right? Because when you understand things in a larger sense, right, you realize that in order to come out of this identification with thinking you're a physical body and thinking you're a personality, you got to be pushed out of it or shocked out of it. Otherwise, you won't come out of it, right? Because you'll think that that's all there is and I have to just accept this, right? Yeah, but if you start to suffer, if you start having mental health issues like anxiety and depression, if your life isn't working, if your relationships suck, you know, if you're not taking care of your body, if your finances are terrible, you know, all of that, then you might consider that you might be missing something. You know, maybe the thing that's causing all this to be off course and not be workable is that you've made a big mistake very early on, and not having corrected that mistake, you continue to try and make it work. You continue to try and make your life work as a physical body and make your life work as a personality, and you continue to run into the fact that that just doesn't seem to happen, because it can't happen and it can't work for the simple reason that you are not the personality. You are not the personality. So again, you put this mask on, right, called the personality, and you have a name that they gave you, you know, you're told you're a physical body, you go to school, learn how to be a civilized personality, and now you're a personality among personalities, and you're in competition. Because you, like me, when I first went to school, the first day that I went to kindergarten, right, it was a big shock. It's like, oh shit, I have to deal with this now. I have to be among all these other kids. And some of them have nicer clothes, some of them have a nicer face, some of them have a nicer body, you know, so I just peed my pants. That's what I did in kindergarten. The first day I was standing there during the flag salute, I'm standing in a puddle, right? It worked, because they had to call my mother, and she came and took me home, so I got to escape, right? But then she informed me I was going back the next day. So I had to figure out how to deal with this, right? And this is how your personality develops, right? You start developing ways of being, right? Yeah, so one of the ways that I developed as a personality, as a way of being, is I was going to be invisible. That was my mode of operation as a personality, because I was a skinny little kid, right? And I couldn't deal with the competition of all those kids in the class with, you know, all those nice clothes and, you know, all that. So I just decided I'm just going to be, I disappeared by peeing myself, but I had to come back. So now I have to disappear and be there.
Did you pee yourself the next day, or were you okay?
What's that?
Did you pee yourself the next day?
No. My mother informed me not to do that, or I would be punished, right? No, so I just started being invisible. What does that mean? I didn't talk. I didn't interact with the other students. I just stayed in the back. I played that role all the way through high school. All the way through high school. I remember in junior high, I was sitting in the back of the class one day, and the teacher said, he was chastising the class for being disruptive, you know. And he said, you know, why can't the rest of you be like David in the back there, you know? You wouldn't even know he's here. And I'm sitting back there saying, success, right? But what I want you to know is that, you know, to be a personality is not a functional reality. You know what I mean? If I stayed as that, my life would not go well. You can't participate in life and be invisible, okay? So what these teachings are about, and what we're practicing here, is about allowing the static and the noise to calm down enough so it's possible for you to recognize that which has always been here, never not here, that which is you, which is always here, but you don't have much practice experiencing yourself that way. And when you practice meditation consistently, and even for people who haven't practiced consistently, once in a while, all of us have a gap. All of us have a break in the action, a break in the thinking process. And every once in a while, when that happens, we experience this sense of, wow, what is this? I don't feel like I'm suffering. I feel happy, I feel satisfied, I feel peaceful. And I don't know why, nothing's changed. And when that happens, the first thing that you do is say, I don't know what this is or where this came from, but I want this back. This is the me I want to be, like that, okay? And so that is a foretaste or a glimpse of what it's like to experience your true nature, right? Because your true nature is always relaxed and happy. It's never being affected by the circumstances of your life. However, that's not going to be the experience you have unless you deal with the fact that your brain has been hypnotized. Your brain has been conditioned to believe that you are this body and you are this personality. So now you have this, you've come in contact with this idea that that's not actually the truth. The truth is I am this awareness that's always here, but I'm not aware of it because my attention is being paid to the thinking process, or my attention is being paid to the circumstances, or my attention is being paid to the idea that I'm a physical body, and all of the thinking is about, how to compete in the world, how to survive in the world, how to make my life work in the world. And so my life, when I'm involved with the world as a personality, my life is a more different and better proposition. When you're living in the world as a personality, your life is a more different and better proposition. What do I mean by that? I mean that as you attempt to improve and get better, you will keep changing. You'll do more of something or you'll do less of something, right? You'll do something different, right? More different or better, more different or better. You look at the advertising, what do they say? New, different, improved. We give you more, right? So that's how they sell you things, because that's how your mind works. It's a more different and better operation, constantly looking around to see what can I get more of that I want? What can I get less of that I don't want? How can I make things better? And your whole life is an improvement project that requires a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of craziness, a lot of neuroticism. So that leaves you as this neurotic person, struggling, coping, trying to change things, trying to find a way to stabilize your life, trying to get your relationships to work, trying to get enough money to feel secure. That's the game of life that everybody's playing, right? Well, in the middle of that game, there are people that claim that they have awoken to experience who they actually are. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of those people. I practiced meditation for many years. I studied the teachings from the East, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Zen, the whole 9 yards, did every self-improvement program that I could find, right? And it got to the point where I realized this isn't going to get much better, right? I realized that in my own life, and I had plenty of room for improvement, okay? But then in the midst of all that, all of a sudden what happened was that at different times, my eyes opened up and I was experiencing the reality of what I was. In the beginning, that lasted for brief periods of times and then a little longer, right? And then at one point, it just became a permanent shift. And after that permanent shift occurred, I was able to consistently experience my life from the view of the awareness. And I could see my personality, but I wasn't being it anymore. And that's the difference. You see, you will, if you wake up and start to experience your true nature, the awareness that is your actual self, the personality will still continue to play, right? It has to, because you can't be in this world as awareness. It doesn't have a form. You can't be in this world as awareness. You have to have a piece on the board to play this game, which is your body, okay? So the personality will continue. Paul Hederman, one of my favorite teachers, calls the person an action figure, okay? So that'll continue to occur, right? But as it's playing, after you start to wake up and after you wake up, as it's playing, you're not that, you're acting as that. You see what I'm saying? That's the action figure. You're acting as a personality, but that's not what you are. And that difference makes the difference, right? Because you can be relaxed, at peace, happy, enjoying your life consistently, right? And the personality is the action figure or the way you're behaving. And because your experience is now different, right? The patterns that typically play in the personality, which comes from your conditioning, right? Come up to play, right? Like somebody does something that triggers your anger, right? So as a personality, you know, that anger comes up to play, that program starts to run, you feel angry, you want to do something, right? But now because you're awake, you know that you're acting as a personality, and because you're acting as a personality, you have a choice about how you act now that you never had. You have a choice about how you act now, and your actions are now being informed by the fact that you're awake and you're actually here seeing what's really happening in your life, and you're actually here seeing what's really happening in your life from a place where you're calm and relaxed, and you see the brain developing behaviors and producing behaviors for the personality, right? But now because you're not that, you can see what's happening and you can choose to behave differently. That's power. Yeah.
Your personality more or less morphs and becomes more sane, even though it's your personality.
Yeah, because now instead of being it, you see, if you're being the personality, right, then you are insecure because the personality is unstable, you see. So if you're being it, you are insecure, and if you're being it, the behaviors come and you act them out without experiencing any ability to do it any differently. Right? That's the frustration people experience, you know? When you get pissed off and you act stupid, right? Then later you feel guilty about it. And this starts to build up until you really feel like an asshole.
You get control of that personality more if you're more aware?
No, you don't get control of the personality more because you don't need to. If you're not the personality, right, you can let it run whatever programming it wants to run, right? And you don't have to control it because you're not involved with it anymore. You're not being it, you're watching what it's doing, you see. And so it can run whatever patterns it wants to run or behaviors it wants to run. And because you know you're not it, and because you're now aware that what's running here is not appropriate, this is not a good behavior, right? Because that's the case, you withdraw your interest in the thoughts and the feelings. You withdraw your interest in that. And because you withdraw your interest in that, that neural pattern that came up to play gets weak because it needs the energy of your attention to continue to exist. That's how thoughts maintain their existence. You give them your attention. You withdraw that attention, those same thoughts start to die down because they need your attention to live. As you continue to live from the truth of yourself in relationship to the patterns that come up to play as a personality, you will be there and aware and awake and seeing things as they really are, so you'll stop being stupid. And you'll start withdrawing energy from those patterns that are ineffective patterns that cause nothing but suffering. And those patterns will all begin to die down and die out. So you're reprogramming your brain. But not by changing the personality, simply by being aware of it, not identifying with it when it's crazy. And when you take that energy back, it starts to lose its energy, you know? Like I used to say, if you don't feed your dog, the dog will die. If you don't feed your mind, the thoughts that the mind are producing will dissipate and dissolve. And if you don't feed your mind, the mind will get hungry, right? And it will have to learn that you're the master instead of it's the master. Because most people live their life with the mind running the show. What do I mean by that? The mind runs the show by producing thoughts that you blindlessly follow. You know, you don't question your own thoughts. Why? You don't question your own. Does that mean that you think your thoughts are perfect? That you think your thoughts are actually the truth? Most people do, right? That's
Especially the less you did meditation and you understand your thoughts are sometimes they're irrational or emotional and they're
well, not just unless you do meditation, unless you have a consistent practice of meditation, right? Because just doing meditation alone is not enough. It has to be consistent and it has to be done correctly, and you have to understand what the process involves so that you can actually make the shift, right, from identifying with the personality to identifying with the reality of what you are, right? So this takes patience, it takes time, it takes diligence, right? It's not free lunch, but it can happen if you do the practice. And, you know, one of the questions that comes up about this, and it's really coming from the mind or the personality, is, oh, how long will this take? You know what I mean? How long do I have to meditate every single day before I wake up and have everything that you say that I can have, right? Well, the answer to that question is the same answer to the question, how long does it take to get a black belt in karate? Same answer, right? It's up to you. You know, you can, you know, if you studied karate and you were totally committed to getting a black belt and you were working out every single day, you could get a black belt pretty quick, right? Same thing is true with meditation. If you get committed to meditation because you understand how it works and you want what it has to offer, and because of that, you practice every day the way it's meant to be done, and because of that, you study the teachings that go along with the practice, you're on the road, you're on the path, as they say, right? And how long it'll take depends on you, how committed you are. It's hard to disconnect from it because you're attached to it, you're addicted to it. You're addicted to thinking. You're addicted to feeling good, right? You're addicted to getting the things you want, aren't you? That's why they sell you things in the commercials, because they know the condition you're in is one where you're always lacking. You're always thinking the next thing, you know, the next marriage, you know, the next car, the next house, right? Even from a spiritual sense, there are a lot of spiritual practitioners, right, that go the next life, right? Well, you know, in the teachings that I'm familiar with and with my own experience, it's pretty evident to me that there is no next life. This is all there is. The present moment is all there ever will be. And in Zen, one of the things they teach is don't worry about the future. Don't worry, you got enough trouble now. You got enough trouble right now. Get that handled. If you can get peace, happiness, and fulfillment right now, you're in the ballpark. Don't worry about the future. Because in reality, there is no future anyway. In reality, what the ancient teachings, the esoteric ancient teachings teach us is that this moment that we're experiencing right now is reality, period. There is nothing else. There will never be anything else. This is your life. The moment that you're experiencing is your entire life. If you can get that moment to be workable, if you can get that moment to be satisfying and happy and peaceful, you won the game. You won the game. So the message that I want to get across here is that there is an answer to all of the suffering. There is an answer to all the mental conditions that people are suffering from. And I'm a psychologist, so I get to talk like this. There is an answer to it. And if you involve yourself in meditation consistently and do it the way it's meant to be done, and if you listen to the teachings, right, the teachings are thousands of years old, and then there's contemporary teachings too that are reflecting those teachings and reflecting those ancient teachings in a contemporary mode. So if you start to get involved with those teachings and do these practices, you are beginning a process that will end you up with everything you've ever wanted. That's really what's available. And so, you know, the question is, are you willing, you know, to be receptive? Are you willing to have an open mind and be receptive to what I'm talking about here? Are you willing to give it consideration? Are you willing to look at it? You know, are you willing to read some of these books? Are you willing to listen to some of these teachers and consider what they're saying? If you do, you will be opening yourself up to the possibility of having a fulfilled life. What's a fulfilled life? A fulfilled life is a life where you're really present to the moment. Here's the deal about Be Here Now, right? The Be Here Now was a big deal years ago, right? Be Here Now. Here's the deal with that. You can't be anywhere else. So why would you try to be where you can't be anywhere else? You can't stop being in the present. There's no possibility of it, right? So if you're trying to be where you already are, you're wasting energy, right? The same thing is true with the idea of realizing your true nature. Don't forget what I said is that your true nature is already the case. You already are that. So do you have to become it? No, obviously not, right? But you'll try anyway, won't you? Haven't you?
Well, personalities keep trying.
That's right, because as long as you're in the personality, the only way to get to what I'm talking about is to change, right? As long as you consider yourself to be the personality, the only way to get to what I'm talking about is to change, right? But what if you took what I am saying and realized, wait a minute, he said I am already the self. I am already who I really am that can introduce me to peace, happiness, well-being, and satisfaction. I'm already that. Oh, if I'm already that, how about if I start being that and paying attention to when the personality tries to come up and change that? That's a better way of right? That's a better way of dealing with things, because now you're being something that's real. You're being something that's actually true. And as you're being what's actually true, you're paying attention to what's not true. And by doing that, you can gradually eliminate your identifying with something that you're not until that is, resolved, and then you're just who you are, right? Then you're just who you really are. And as that begins to occur, and as that happiness and peace and well-being begins to become your consistent experience, right? You can then start to apply it to your life in terms of how does that change the way I relate to other people? Because don't forget, in these teachings and practices, one of the things that we're discovering is that this awareness that I am is exactly the same as the awareness that's over there. Exactly the same. The body looks different, the personality is different, but the awareness is exactly the same. Well, maybe that's because me and you are the same thing. Maybe that's because there's only one self, right? And in the world that we live in, where everything is separated and divided, right, that one self appears to be different people in different bodies. If that's true, and I realize that, I see that directly, and I realize that, my relationships are going to change. Because then I realize the people that I'm relating to are me. Even if they don't know that I am them. The people that are relating to are me. And that also means the people that I'm relating to are innocent. They're innocent. Because all the things that they do that are screwed up and crazy, that's coming from their personality, and they don't know they're not that. So you see that this changes the game. It's a game changer. It changes everything. Changes how you relate to other people. Changes how you relate to yourself, right? You start realizing that your true nature is love. You start realizing that what is love? Love means, it's more than this, but one way of saying is it means total unconditional acceptance of everything being just as it is. If you totally accept everything being just as it is, including yourself, your body, other people, life, circumstances, the past, the future, if you accept everything just as it is, how can you not be happy? There's no conflict. This is what they mean by the living in the flow of life, right? When you're living in the flow of life, you're living with life, not against life. You're moving with life as part of life, not against life, because you realize you are not separate from life. As a matter of fact, if you continue to do this work and do these practices, you begin to discover and experience that you are life. You are life. You are awareness. You are consciousness, and consciousness is what everything is appearing in, and you are that consciousness. It can even go even further, as you continue to practice, you can get even deeper into this and start to begin to see even a clearer picture of how everything is one, not two. Having your energy, your interest, and your concern not be about you anymore, right? Be about giving instead of taking, right? Then you discover what love really is, because you feel love when you give instead of when you're taking, okay? And the other thing that happens is if you're going to be that way with people, right, where you're going to serve them and you're going to be there for them and not for you, and you're not having any attention on yourself, right, then what happens is that your personality stands down. Right? Because you're not functioning from that. You're functioning from being the space that can hold other people's pain, right? Yeah, your awareness has an unlimited capacity to hold experience. So you can be a space for other people's pain. You can take other people's pain on, One of the things that happens for an awake human being, they can eat poison. They can eat poison because you're in a transformed reality now. You're no longer the same as you were when you thought of yourself as just a physical body, right? You're in a transcendental condition now. What do I mean that you can eat poison? I mean you can eat anger. You can eat all of the emotional pain and suffering that's going on around you and not have it affect you, right? Because if you're being who you are, you're not impacted by the circumstances. So this is why, that's another aspect of how this is the answer to everything. Dead people aren't dead when you're awake. Dead people aren't, because if what we're talking about here is you're realizing your true nature is not physical, right? Right? So that means when this body dies, what you are is not physical, so that must not die, right? Therefore, anybody that died, right, we thought they died when the body died, right? No, but as long as they're in existence, and obviously his mother's in existence, isn't she? Yeah, as long as she's in existence, you can talk to her, you can help her heal, all that stuff, right? So it changes reality, dramatically changes reality in good ways. Things can happen that couldn't happen in the ordinary world, right? Couldn't happen in the ordinary world. Because what happens when you're practicing formal meditation and your attention goes to thought, right? A lot of times you don't even know you're thinking for a while, right? So if you train yourself to label it thinking, it'll kind of help you to recognize, oh, I'm thinking, okay, back to the breath, like that. But eventually you want to take the wheels off. Eventually you don't want to meditate with music, you don't want to meditate with a mantra, you don't want to meditate with anything. You want to be that stillness. You want to go directly to the heart of the matter and be what you actually are. That's the goal of meditation. And if you do that with consistency in the practice of meditation, eventually it'll start happening in your everyday life. The personality, the thoughts, the emotions, the physical sensations, even the perceptions are all from the personality. That's all what the brain has been conditioned with. So even after you're awake, the same programming keeps playing, right? So once you're awake, you start disidentifying with the programming and it starts dying out. Yeah, you kind of live in the moment that you're in.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's a lot easier to ride the horse in the direction it's going, right? So you start living in the moment that you're in instead of spending your life in your head, right? And you're in the world instead of in your head, right? So it's a whole different life. But it begins by just getting the idea of what this possibility is, and then beginning to practice and learn over time, and then you start getting a direct introduction to reality, right? Yeah, Frank's been doing this work with me for several years now, right? And he reports that his experience of who he is in his life is different. And what'll happen over time, if you do this every single day, you know, if you come to the gym every single day and work out, after a while, it's not something you have to have any discipline about. It's what you do. That's what you do. Same thing with meditation. It becomes what you do, right? So much what you do is that you find yourself, not when you're practicing formal meditation, but just walking around in your life, you find yourself going into it. Just find yourself going into it because you realize there's so many opportunities during an ordinary day when your attention is not taken by anything. Why not just shift into a nice meditative state, right? And if you do that, right, you're now populating your awareness, you're populating your life with this experience of being who you are and being happy and relaxed and peaceful. You're populating it until it shuts out all of the rest of the craziness. And then you're just peaceful and happy, and people start saying, "What's wrong with you?"